Months after our first WGN Investigates report on questionable spending by South suburban politician Tiffany Henyard, it appears she has been forced off the ballot.
Thornton Township Supervisor Tiffany Henyard, who was appointed to that position tonight, lost her bid for the Democratic Party's nominee.
Tiffany Henyard, notorious for her larger-than-life personality and self-styled title of super mayor, is in the midst of a fierce battle to retain her hold on power in both Thornton Township and Dalton, Illinois. Now embroiled in yet another scandal, she faces serious allegations of election tampering, voter suppression, and a series of lawsuits after being excluded from the Democratic ballot for township supervisor. The aftermath has been nothing short of explosive, with accusations flying in every direction. The big question now is whether Henyard is truly a political leader fighting for justice, or if she's desperately clinging to power as mounting opposition and controversy close in on her. As the situation continues to unfold, the tension is palpable, and the future of Henyard's career hangs in the balance.
That's all it took for Tiffany Henyard to come out as the Democratic nominee for Thornton Township Supervisor, and she left here visibly upset.
Napoleon Harris, a state senator and township Democratic committeeman, made a decision that sent shockwaves through local politics, igniting intense drama. For the first time in over 30 years, Harris opted to hold a caucus instead of a primary election to determine the Democratic candidates for the upcoming election. Many saw this as a calculated move to block Tiffany Henyard's path to the nomination. Both critics and supporters speculated that the caucus was strategically designed to work against her, and the outcome seemed to confirm these suspicions. Henyard's name was notably absent from the Democratic ballot, and the reason for her disqualification was her slate's failure to include a certified assessor, a technicality that Harris used to dismiss her candidacy. With this mistake, Harris and his own slate of candidates took full advantage, ensuring that his faction dominated the caucus and secured the coveted Democratic nomination for the April election. This decision marked a significant blow to Henyard and sparked fierce debates in the community over fairness, procedural integrity, and the motives behind Harris's choice. While some argue the caucus was a legitimate use of procedural tools to uphold the standards of candidacy, others viewed it as a power grab aimed at sidelining Henyard and consolidating Harris's control over the political landscape. The fallout from this decision went beyond the caucus hall, triggering heated debates about the legitimacy of the process and its implications for local democracy. Henyard and her supporters claimed that Harris' actions were part of a broader attempt to undermine her leadership and seize control of the political system for his own gain. On the other hand, Harris and his allies defended the caucus, insisting that it was conducted in line with Democratic Party rules and was a necessary step to restore order and credibility to local governance. As emotions soared, this contentious episode not only reshaped the electoral landscape, but also deepened the rift in an already divided community. It raised difficult questions about power dynamics and accountability in local politics. Henyard's response to her disqualification from the caucus was nothing short of explosive, marking a dramatic escalation in an already volatile political situation. Tensions reached a boiling point when Henyard, visibly enraged, stormed out of the caucus meeting, leveling fierce accusations at Harris and his allies. She accused them of orchestrating a plot to sabotage her political career, denouncing the caucus as election rigging at its finest. Henyard lambasted the entire process as illegal, claiming it was a blatant effort to undermine her leadership and disenfranchise her supporters. She branded the caucus as a farce designed specifically to eliminate her from the race and suppress the will of her constituents. Henyard framed Harris's actions as a calculated, undemocratic power grab that tarnished the integrity of the electoral process. Her outburst resonated deeply with her base, who viewed her exclusion from the ballot as an unjust affront. They saw it as yet another example of political maneuvering aimed at silencing their voice and denying them a fair chance at representation. Henyard didn't stop with words. She made it clear she wouldn't accept what she saw as an injustice without a fight. In passionate speeches, she vowed to take legal action against those she accused of undermining democratic principles. Her promise to sue became a rallying cry for her supporters, deepening the controversy and dividing the community. For Henyard, this was more than a personal setback. It was a battle for political survival. She framed the situation as a fight against a corrupt system, suppressing the will of the people. Her fiery rhetoric energized her base, but critics argued she was focused more on self-preservation than addressing local issues. Henyard's legal battles threatened to distract from the township's pressing concerns, raising uncertainty about the community's future direction. However, Henyard insisted these battles were crucial to preserving fairness and justice. Her speeches kept her at the center of the controversy, with some viewing her as a fearless leader fighting a rigged system, while others saw her as an opportunist unwilling to confront her campaign's flaws. The community was deeply divided. Critics pointed to Henyard's failure to meet basic candidacy requirements, like presenting a certified assessor, and argued her exclusion was justified. In contrast, Henyard's supporters believed her disqualification was a deliberate attempt by Harris to consolidate power and eliminate opposition. No matter the perspective, Henyard's defiance strengthened her resolve. She became a symbol of resistance for many who felt sidelined by the political establishment, turning her struggle into a larger fight for the township's future. However, Henyard's response only deepened the divisions within the community. As the election drew closer, emotions ran high, and the focus of the debate shifted away from Henyard's qualifications and candidacy to broader, more contentious issues surrounding fairness, integrity, and the distribution of political power. Harris's supporters defended the caucus process as fair, but to many, it seemed like nothing more than a high-stakes power struggle to determine who would control the future of local governance. As tensions escalated, Henyard's legal actions, combined with her fiery rhetoric, made it clear that she wasn't going to fade quietly from the scene. The stakes were high. Her political future, reputation, and standing within the community were all on the line. Whether her legal challenges would succeed in restoring her candidacy or further alienate her critics remained uncertain. What was undeniable, however, was that Henyard's explosive response to her disqualification had transformed the local election into a high-stakes political showdown. Ultimately, this saga raised crucial questions about fairness, political power, and the integrity of the democratic process at the local level. Henyard's refusal to accept the outcome without a fight underscored her determination to challenge the status quo, no matter the cost. As the situation continues to unfold, it's clear that this chapter in Henyard's career will remain a defining moment in the political history of the township. Whether it will lead to her political revival or mark the beginning of her downfall is still to be determined. But one thing is certain, the battle is far from over, and its outcome will likely have lasting consequences for the community for years to come.
If they could beat me, they would have went to the caucus. But now when I bring the people out, you don't let them.
The caucus at the Homewood Flossmoor Park District Auditorium quickly descended into chaos, becoming a battleground for accusations of ballot suppression and unfair practices. Tiffany Henyard, the central figure in the controversy, claims that the turmoil started before the event even began. She alleges that hundreds of her supporters, including elderly residents, were forced to wait outside in freezing temperatures after arriving late due to transportation delays she had arranged. These supporters were not allowed entry, which Henyard argues disenfranchised them and suppressed voter turnout. She accused the organizers of intentionally excluding her base and manipulating the caucus outcome. Inside, the situation was no better. Henyard's camp reports that the meeting lasted only 7 minutes, during which Napoleon Harris and his allies swiftly nominated themselves for the Democratic ticket. Henyard contends that the short, tightly controlled meeting was deliberately designed to minimize transparency and exclude opposition. She argues that the caucus was a farce intended to rig the election and silence dissent. For Henyard and her supporters, the event symbolizes voter suppression and a broken democratic process. They view the exclusion of her supporters as a direct attack on their right to participate. Critics, however, argue that Henyard is exaggerating the situation and pointing fingers at logistical issues, while the event itself followed procedural rules. The debate has only fueled the growing divide in Thornton Township, with Henyard framing the caucus as a calculated effort to consolidate power at the expense of fairness and representation. Henyard's portrayal of the caucus, marked by claims of disenfranchisement, rushed decisions, and exclusionary practices, has resonated with many in her community, intensifying public outcry. The fallout from the chaotic event has deepened the political divide in Thornton Township, leaving voters polarized and questioning the process's legitimacy. For Henyard and her supporters, the caucus represents not just a defeat, but an attack on democratic values and community representation, one they're determined to challenge. As Henyard prepares legal action, her version of events at the Homewood Flossmoor Park District Auditorium serves as a powerful critique of a system she believes is rigged against her and her supporters. This controversial episode has become central to the political discourse in Thornton Township, with lasting consequences expected. Henyard supporters have launched a fierce campaign against Napoleon Harris, accusing him of orchestrating the caucus to further his agenda and secure political dominance without opposition. Keith Price, a vocal ally of Henyard, called it the most brazen scam he'd ever witnessed, claiming hundreds of eligible participants were unfairly excluded. Price argued the exclusion was a calculated strategy to suppress Henyard's supporters and ensure Harris's slate emerged victorious. Henyard's camp echoes this sentiment, insisting the caucus was rigged to marginalize opposing voices. Election lawyer Carrie Krafteffer lent credibility to these claims by analyzing the caucus and uncovering several procedural violations. She pointed out that organizers had failed to collect signed affidavits from participants, an essential safeguard to verify voter eligibility and maintain the integrity of the election. Krafteffer also identified other irregularities that compromised the transparency and fairness typically expected in democratic processes. These revelations strengthened Henyard's camp's assertion that the caucus was intentionally structured to silence dissent and disenfranchise her supporters. Critics argue that by circumventing these safeguards, the caucus organizers prioritized consolidating their own power over ensuring a legitimate, fair outcome. Price's impassioned condemnation and Krafteffer's expert analysis have only intensified the outrage among Henyard's backers, who now view the incident as a glaring example of systemic corruption. For many, it demonstrates how entrenched political interests manipulate the rules to their benefit, leaving ordinary citizens disillusioned with the electoral process. Henyard supporters perceive this not just as an attack on their candidate, but as a broader assault on democratic principles. The deep frustration, anger, and sense of injustice have fueled a resolve to challenge what they see as a flagrant subversion of fairness. To them, the caucus is a symbol of a broken political system in desperate need of reform, igniting their determination to hold those responsible accountable and push for a more equitable political framework.